West Ham's a club that, well, this season have changed manager, and then all the staff goes. I mean, what's the financial hit on that, Daniel? You know, when you see, like, I'll get rid of the manager, get a new one in. I mean, I can imagine, people at the top end of the club are looking at the financial situation of that, as well as, maybe having to buy a manager, or, a clause as well to get him. Is that must be a huge expenditure?
It is, but the clever clubs are doing it well. So on manager contracts, a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with is all around the termination clauses, as you could imagine. And so a lot of it will be key performance indicator related. So, for example, give one idea is, let's just say there's a manager that whose club should be going for Champions League every season, and then don't qualify for the Champions League in a particular year, regardless of whether they got a 1-year deal or a 5-year deal. There might be a clause that then says, well, if you don't qualify for the Champions League for that season, then we can sack you and the compensation will be 2 mil, for example. There might also be other clauses that a good lawyer would draft around actually being like, well, if we sack you, or if you decide to go anywhere else, and we'll pay you, let's say, installments for the next year or whatever else it might be, if you get another job, then our compensation to you finishes because you've got your money for your next deal. So really what you want to try and do as the club, and usually in a position of strength, is to be able to limit the payout in the event that a sacking happens, and maximise the payout if there's a buyout, for example, and then your manager is going somewhere else.
Do clubs actually employ agents? Because I'm thinking of I can't remember what the Portuguese fella's called, the big Portuguese. Mendes, yeah. You look at Wolves saying, Portuguese players. The clubs do that, or is that something that doesn't happen?
Yeah, so the way you'd always look at it is selling club can have an agent, player will have an agent, and the buying club can have an agent. And sometimes there's interlinkages between them. And the way that usually a selling club agent will be remunerated is a percentage of the transfer fee. So if you can imagine, an agent will come to a club and say, player A, they're worth 50 mil. I think I can get 70 mil for you. So for that 20 mil difference, I'll take X percentage. And everybody's happy because ultimately the club get more than they thought the value would be for that player when selling.
So why does the club need to employ an agent to bring players in? What's the director of football doing? Should that not be his role, negotiating and getting good prices, good wages?
Yeah, it can be. So usually what happens is the player's agent will be paid on behalf of the player for player services, and also the buying club for buying club services. So that will usually be making sure that that player, when they're coming in, is integrated well, wants to come to the club, is doing all the right things from a PR and rep management perspective. So the player's agent can also be paid by the buying club too.
Right. Flav, you must have a few questions.
Well, yeah, Spurs have just signed Matistel. Or have we signed him? I don't know, because Man United pulled out because the upfront transfer fee or the loan fee was significant enough that it didn't necessarily guarantee that Matistel was going to remain at the football club. What I understand it to be, and this is probably incorrect, is Spurs have paid a fee up front for the loan, and then there's an option to buy him for 45 million euros, 50 million euros, whatever it is. The confusion we have is who has the power over deciding that transfer. Can Matistel in the summer say this club is mental, I need out?
You'd definitely say that.
Yeah, it probably would. I would. But or do the club say, you've essentially agreed the transfer in principle, we're activating that option? What's the likelihood there?
Yeah, usually, and I don't know that deal in particular, but usually what will happen is if there's a loan with an option for a permanent, the option will almost certainly be at the club's obligation. And usually it will be based on objective criteria, which is if we have played you a certain amount of games, if we have qualified for Champions League or otherwise, I'm not sure obviously how likely that is for the moment. And then what will obviously have to happen at the same time in order to crystallise that option is he'll have to have agreed personal terms already on the deal, and the agent will have had to agree the commission structure as well. So all of those docs will have had to be put in place on the chance that then the option is crystallised at the end of the season.
So it is on Tottenham to sign that player. Matistel can't necessarily just run away.
You cannot.
He'll try.
Can he run away?
Cannot agree.
I'm not sure that's a legal concept.
Right.
Daniel, we speak about Daniel Levy a lot. I mean, from you standing back or maybe doing deals with him, I mean, would you class him as one of the best operators? Can you, or can you understand the frustration? Where are you with some of the way he runs his
Well,
football?
I'm
club?
always of the view, it depends how you classify success. And success in football is classified loads of different ways. Is it winning the transfer window? Is it qualifying for the Champions League? Is it avoiding relegation? Is it making profit? Is it winning trophies and all the rest of it? Now, Spurs is one of the only clubs over a sustained period of time that doesn't make substantive losses. So in some ways, they've won my table of good fortune. Whether that's any validation at all, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But the real point, I think, is ultimately, like Liverpool, like Brentford, Brighton have done for a number of years, is you've got to get that recruitment right. It's not like Spurs haven't spent money, just like other clubs. And if you get that recruitment right by putting the right structure in place, you are only measured by your on-field success in the end. No one cares whether you make millions of losses as long as it doesn't lead to bankruptcy. But what you've ultimately got to do is ensure some type of glory. And unfortunately for Spurs, the issue is that on a consistent basis, if the general benchmark is, are 50% of your transfers successful or not? And if you're over that threshold, you're doing pretty well. If you're under it, obviously there are issues. And unfortunately for some clubs, that threshold has been under for a particular period of time and over.
But I think there's a discrepancy in what a successful transfer is. For the fans, it might be Dominic Solanke scoring 15 goals. At the minute, the club are looking at bringing in these incredibly talented kids for their age, and the upside of the transfer fee 5 years down the line. And now it may turn out that these clutch of young players that we've got coming through turn Tottenham into a superpower in the Premier League. The likelihood is that we will demand big transfers.